Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Bridezilla, where some brides just don't believe that what we're all going through is real and decide not to cancel their wedding for a safer date. And of course, don't forget about my new channel that focuses only on Am I the A-hole? You'll find the link in the description. So now let's get started with the first story. This one is from user Ragana Wolfbane. So this happened right before I left the wedding business as a planner. Still sometimes do wedding photography, but like once a year or something. I had a location booking taking place at a Legion if I recall. Bride is very hands-on and often makes contact every few days going over details. Her big issue was which photography package to get. If I recall, there were 5. Different prices, locations, and pictures amount. They could also pay for more time or locations, but not additional photos. We also had video, which was basically just the time booked, 1 hour. This bride was having an evening wedding and wanted shots of the wedding, but also the midnight cake cutting, and none after wedding or before cake, which was a few hours in between. I called the photographer, who says since he is local, he didn't mind doing the added location. I said, okay, so you'd have to get the package that comes with a location for the photographer to do a shoot hours after the wedding. And she replies, why? It's at the same location. And I respond, true, but it's like 4 hours in between. So if you want that, that's how it's going to happen. This went on for days. Finally, she understood. Like, the issue was she didn't see why the photographer would not come back 4 hours later at midnight for no price increase. Daft, I tell you. So then it's about the amount of photos. She says, why would I need 200 photos? Can I get less for cheaper? I respond, no. The photo counts are approximations. I don't charge more if it gives you 50 extra. Plus, you have the second location. The price covers the photographer's time, not just value of photos. This went on for days. She even started calling the photographer trying to get him to take a pay cut. Ugh. So this was like 2 months worth of back and forth. Finally, she comes in to pay on full. Drop off her license, yada yada. At the time, it was a busy weekend, but I didn't mind. I just said, you may have to wait if there is a wedding going on, cause that's where I will be. But luckily, when she came, there were no weddings going on. My boss was in the office too. He knew about the conversations, having been told by myself and the photographer. And guess what else? The photographer was in my office. She comes in with like half the city. The room is packed with her, hubby-to-be, and like 10 other people, mostly kids. She says, hi OP, it's great to finally meet you. And I go, hi, Regina Phalange, it's great to meet you too. By the way, here is Flash, he is your photographer, and this is also your officiant. Then she goes, what photographer? Silence. Well, on our part. I say, for your wedding, you have spoken to him on the phone. And she goes, I didn't order photos, I ordered video. I kid you not. She got into a huge huff on how she always said video and a direct quote, what the frig would I want photos for? Her wedding was in days. Like, oh my god, I had to beg the videographer to do a midnight second location. He said he would do it for the price of the photo package already chosen, which I thought was fair. His second location fee was less than the package she ordered. I don't know why. He made the prices with the company, not us, setting a rate for him. My next day in the office after her wedding, I have a voicemail. OP, it's Video Guy, call me ASAP. I call, hi Video Guy, it's OP. And he goes, so the wedding I did at the Legion, well, I get there and she's like, I didn't want video, I booked photos. What the frig am I gonna do with video? And that's how I got a concussion by banging my head on a desk. Wow, I'm really sorry you went through that, OP. She sounds like a horrible bridezilla, hands-on and not making any clear decisions. I would say that for next time, if you do get back in the business, use email for all communications so that there's written proof of what the bride actually wants or what she doesn't want. But like they say, everyone's a general after the war. Alright, and now we move on to the next story. This one is from user BestTestDD. My very close friend from college got engaged in the fall of last year. He has been dating his fiancée for a few years, so it's not a surprise to me that he pulled the trigger and finally proposed. I have never been a fan of the bride-to-be, and our friendship had probably suffered because of this. She is self-entitled and demanding, to say the least. My friend is a great guy, but he settled for her because she is the perfect honey trap in my opinion, but I doubt she is worth all the drama. The wedding was scheduled for March, but not surprisingly, because of Rona, things had to be delayed. However, the bride-to-be was having none of this. Frankly, she would have proceeded with the wedding if not for the venue completely shutting down and barring them from going forward despite everyone's objection. The bride's family do not seem to believe the health risks are real and do not seem to be concerned with anyone else's concerns. Per my friend, they even disrespected his family when they expressed doubts about having the wedding, saying things like, "Well, you aren't paying for this, so of course you want to cancel the wedding." They actually were contributing nearly 50% according to my buddy. The bride-to-be decided that this whole thing was going to be over by July, and she was adamant that they would find a venue to move forward with the nuptials. Not surprisingly, this put a ton of stress on the groom, who had a nervous breakdown. She threatened that they would break up if he didn't help make this happen. In the meantime, he was laid off from his job because his job was non-essential. So on top of looking for work, his fiancée is putting a ton of pressure on him to take care of this problem. I told him several times to head for the hills, but he would have none of it and kept making excuses for her. They finally found a venue via some friends that agreed to host a party in the midst of all of this, and agreed to the bride's ridiculous stipulations that it proceed like it's 2019. Wedding invites were sent out, and not surprisingly, a large number of guests refused to RSVP. I mean, you would understand why people were reluctant to travel and congregate indoors with a large number of people. The bride-to-be gets so outraged about all of this that she makes her fiancé personally call people that weren't planning to come to quote-unquote shame them into coming. She finally came to the conclusion that he wasn't doing this right and took the task upon herself. Per report from a family member who attended the wedding, she called and said it was all going to be outdoors and there would be all the right precautions despite the bug not really being a big deal. Pretty shocking stuff. The big kicker in all of this is that the groom's father is not a very healthy man. He recently had heart surgery and has some lung issues and wasn't planning on attending. After a lot of pressure from the bride-to-be, he agreed to come. I myself was very reluctant to attend this wedding because I live across the country and have asthma. I also very much believe this is a big deal. Okay, so fast forward to this crazy, bizarre, middle of the apocalypse wedding. Despite all of her cajoling and reassurances that everything will be fine, there is not great attendance. I caught a glimpse of the bride crying several times and screaming at her fiancé as though somehow this was all his fault and not an act of God. The venue was definitely not safety friendly. It was a relatively small indoors affair. It did appear they had planned to have some of the events outdoors, but the rain shut that option down quickly. There were no masks distributed, only a couple bathrooms to wash our hands, and all the tables were crammed together. The only saving grace was the attendance was low. However, had everyone showed up, we would have literally been sitting on each other's laps. The wedding appeared to be the most miserable affair I have ever been to. No one appeared to be having a good time and everyone kept expressing their concerns, including the elderly priest who made a beeline out of there the second he was done. The bride's family did appear to have a good time because none of them seemed to think that Rona was real and kept telling everyone this. They were all smoking together outside and hit up the dance floor hard and generally seemed to be acting like, in fact, this was a wedding in 2019. About a week after the wedding was over, my friend calls me and tells me that his dad is in the hospital. This was about 4 weeks ago and he has been in the ICU ever since. I think he's starting to recover, but it was touch and go there for a little bit. Apparently, at least a couple other people came down with the 19. It turns out that a week prior to the wedding, the bride insisted on going on her bachelorette party and went to Miami with a couple of friends. She apparently had some congestion, cough, and a low fever the night of the wedding. She is refusing to get tested, so I guess we will probably never know if she is patient zero for this whole thing. The bottom line is, my friend is screwed and he married the most selfish woman on the planet, and perhaps his father was killed by this insane Bridezilla. Oh wow, I'm truly sorry OP, your friend made a huge mistake marrying that person. I truly can't believe that she is so selfish that she put people's lives in danger, considering that she might be the one who's got this thing and she doesn't even want to get tested. Yuck. Alright, and now we move on to the final story. This one's from user Our Man Flint 1. A few years ago, I organized a vacation for a group of friends. We rented a big swanky house in Los Cabos, right on the beach. When we were settling into our rooms, the agent, caretaker, said that a woman had tried to rent the house after we'd booked it, and that she asked the rental company to contact us to see if we'd be willing to move to another location or change dates. It may have been possible, we looked at several other suitable places, but the agent said she was so unpleasant and entitled that he decided not to even try and accommodate her, and that he didn't want to bother us. The morning of the wedding, a truck pulls in front of our house and starts unloading chairs and sound equipment down to the beach via a pathway to an open public part of the beach. No problem, the view was beautiful and certainly not restricted to just the homes overlooking it. Our group was hanging out by the pool overlooking the entire beach. By 1 p.m., about 50 or so chairs have been set up on the sand as the June temperature climbed into the high 90s. There was only a flower-covered arch for the bride and groom with no shade for anyone else. At about 2 p.m., the guests started making their way to the seats. Most were in dress suits. There were at least 8 men in cream-colored 3-piece groomsmen suits, and the bridesmaids were in, wait for it, gold lame with shawls. Everyone is sweating profusely and fanning themselves. One of the guests walked up to our pool area and asked if we have any water. We talked to him and he said the bride had told everyone that we ignored her request to change our accommodations and that we were pretty much the reason they were all dying of thirst and heat stroke. He was surprised when I told him that the first we heard of it was when we checked in. Even with the lie about our indifference, we sent down a rolling ice chest full of drinks and a few umbrellas. A few minutes later, the stuff came back untouched. Evidently someone, or the bride, thought our offerings were an attempt to apologize for our supposed meanness. Whatever. So the wedding starts and we're watching the bride wobble across the sand while the song Fix You by Coldplay is playing over the sound system, which is a really weird wedding song in my honest opinion. We're watching the nuptials from our pool area when we notice that one of the bridesmaids is starting to teeter. She was a little heavier and older than the other bridesmaids. Sure enough, she does a complete bowling pin and falls sideways into the sand. One of our group has training and first aid experience, so we went down to the beach with the previously rejected umbrellas and water. He immediately gets cold compresses onto her and elevates her feet. The whole time the bride is yelling at him, "You did this," and "If you weren't so selfish," etc. The whole group just looked deflated and defeated as she started upbraiding everyone there. I finally said, "She'll be okay, and in a few years you will all laugh about this." She said, "Go F yourself." Eventually, the revived bridesmaid watched the restarted service from under our umbrella and the group left for a reception somewhere. When our stuff was returned, the man said that the bride was from a rich family in Minnesota and she had been told the beach was too hot for a midday wedding involving people who may not have been used to the Mexican heat. She had been making everyone miserable for months with demands and requirements for her dream wedding. Well, just like the previous Bridezilla, when you turn into a bee pushing for your dream wedding when circumstances are not permissible to do so, then you're not gonna get your dream wedding, you idiot. But like I usually say, that's just my opinion. And so, we've reached the end of the video. I truly hope you liked it, and if you did, go ahead and click like. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And of course, don't forget about the new channel Lost Genre IATA Daily, only focused on Am I the A-hole? And finally, go ahead and visit the Lost Genre subreddit for you to share stories or cross-post stories from other subs. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.